this grant, the biggest thing that struck me going through something STEM was I kept thinking I had to do something that was directly technology based. And for my life science classes, that really doesn't always fit the bill. So I kind of changed mine and I took the approach that I was going to work more from an engineering stance with my AP students. So what I decided to do with them was an idea where they were going to do some medical investigations that would actually lead them to analyze and interpret data. They were going to have to construct their own explanations, design hypotheses, pull data from the things that they researched, and then actually use that to develop a presentation that they're actually going to use this week during our next open house. With that being said, the big kicker for my students was just the opportunity to expand their knowledge. A lot of times we get so caught up in definition. We don't really give them that hands-on experience to actually say, am I interested in the medical field? And throughout this, I think that's what I accomplished. I had 3 big areas of focus with this section. I had to use some cellular structure, which allowed them to look at some microscopy. They were actually able to use the microscopes, do some cellular work for comparison, like a lab tech would do in a hospital. Homeostatic mechanisms. This is the first time that my students had ever worked with a living specimen. We were very hands-on as far as microscopes go in elementary school, middle school, high school. But the problem is a lot of times we don't let them actually use it with something that's going to move, something that they have to manipulate. With my grant, I decided to order some lab kits for equipment that we didn't necessarily already have for a high school class. One of those things being like the live specimens that I speak about, and then we also used it to buy some like water quality samples because that's something that's been prevalent in our community. Timeline, since I'm not a success, my success is just postponed. Timeline was horrible from what I had originally planned. We had some glitches on getting the money to our school. It actually went somewhere else on accident, but I still got all my activities in time. The only difference was they shifted about 3 months. First thing that I purchased and used with my students were something from Rice University. The big thing with this was it was actually high school level material, but it was geared toward them understanding different types of pathogens that can cause infectious diseases. Kind of linked this into the big Ebola scare that we had at the beginning of the year because that was something that was so interesting to them. I ordered a series of 6 different ones, and we applied those concepts in each one of the lab activities that we did over the course of the next couple of weeks. Part 2 was a lab that I had them do called Investigating Cell Types. In this lab, I presented them with a problem-based scenario. They had a patient with a set of symptoms, and from that I also had like a sample blood smear that was infected with a certain bacteria. They were given all kinds of bacteria slides after that. They actually had to do the lab comparisons and do the work and figure out and diagnose that patient like a lab tech would do for a doctor in a hospital. The next part, I did an epidemic simulation. I wanted them to actually understand that when we find out that these diseases exist, we actually have to do something about populations. We have to understand if it's something that's going to be easily transmitted. They had to get a handle on it. And through this lab, what they were actually able to find out was we looked at over 100 different samples over a progression of 3 generations, and they tracked that disease to see if it were an endemic, meaning it would terminate really quickly in the population, an epidemic, which would affect the country, or a pandemic being worldwide. The next part, we went back to that original patient. They were still presented with a set of symptoms, kind of wrote it off as this whole idea of, okay, your patient's a lot worse now, the symptoms are worse, they need a blood transfusion. So I pulled in a little bit more lab work with them that they may see in a medical setting with blood transfusions and synthetic blood. We did blood typing. We had the original patient, they had blood type that patient, they had 5 possible donors, they had to find a match for that patient and then actually go through that process. The next part, after they had identified that bacteria, they actually had to figure out where it came from. So my idea, kind of going with all of the flooding that we had and issues with water lines and things the past few months, I ordered a kit called Bacterial Examination of Drinking Water. And we actually tested our own school water. We collected from our lunchroom, we collected from a fountain, and then on this certain day, we actually had a horrible rainstorm, so we went outside and we just got some gutter water just to test for comparison. And with that one, they were actually able to use a nutrient broth to grow their bacteria and actually see which samples were clean. And luckily for us, the school samples turned out pretty clean, only the outside water was bad. So they really enjoyed this because it's the first time they got to work with fire in the lab. The next part, and this was probably my favorite, not only for them but for me, this exposed them to something that I honestly, personally, didn't see until my junior year of college. I didn't have any background in microbiology until I was literally a junior. So by doing this part, we took the bacteria that we isolated from the water, and they actually got to plate it and grow it and determine what type it was. It was an E. coli bacteria that we were growing. This part, we've not really done yet in class. We're actually getting ready to start this. This was a late order, but now that we've isolated that E. coli from the water, I'm going to let them also do antibiotic resistance. Not only have they identified it, tested it, but now they're going to try to treat it. So it's literally like I'm trying to take them through the whole gamut of what happened to the patient, what can we do for the patient, and then how can we eradicate it. The specific antibiotic that I ordered for them, high school grade ampicillin, so they're not being exposed to anything really strong. I did have a missing link to my STEM activity. I had also ordered not only the water testing kit, but I had ordered a kit called They're Everywhere. This one has them test different food samples from like a group of students who had washed their hands prior to consuming food compared to a group of students who hadn't. And it allows them to see like the bacterial progression over that period. So if that one gets in time, it's on back order through the company that I try to get it from. I want them to also see that. Like I said earlier, my lab groups, this coming week at school, we're going to be doing an academic showcase. My AP biology students are actually going to be coming into the lab, pulling their bacteria plates out, pulling their broth samples out, setting up their data boards. They're actually going to present their research to the community and tell them, like the parents, this is what we did in lab, this is how we figured out what bacteria and viruses really do. So they're going to have that evidence. I think out of the 19 kids, I have 17 that are willing to present this week, so that's actually a pretty good number. Conclusions and outcomes that I got from this with my kids, they were capable to actually identify these particular diseases, talk about predictions in a scientific way. One of the things that really stood out to me with this was when we actually got back in the classroom and we were out of the lab, and I had them start working on their data boards and working with their presentation groups, the conversations that they were having about, well, it made sense because you could see where it killed the bacteria in this broth. It didn't grow in this broth, so you knew the nutrients weren't right. So the implications and the connections that they were making just from the materials that they were given, they actually saw that progression and that stepping to actually build that knowledge of how bacteria really work. They carried out their own procedures. I didn't do a cookie cutter lab with them. It wasn't step 1, do this, step 2, do that. Make them actually come up with their own research. Future changes. Now that I've done this activity, and I do think I'm actually going to have the funding to do it again next year, I do want to do it as a more hypothetical setup. Because my timeline ended up a little messed up this year, I didn't get to go as completely project-based as I had originally planned. But with next year's research, I think I'll be able to say, here's your patient, and have them take it all the way through the end without my step-by-step guidance. So I hope that gives you a little indication as to how I ran this. A little bit more med tech was my focus rather than just definition and background. Any questions?
How long did it take you to do the process?
I had originally planned it to be a 7-day process. It has taken us 7 days, but we are missing the They're Everywhere lab. That would be a 2-day lab, so that would have to probably be extended out to around 2 weeks if you do it in the full circle, but because I was missing that, it did take me that 7-day frame.
Where did you order these labs from? Was it one company?
Yeah, most of the kits that I ordered were all from Carolina. The Myst Magazines that I used, those were actually from Rice University. And Rice University, some of the materials that they have, you can get on their webpage and you can download the magazines. I could have tried with the computers and things like that, but Katrina was actually really good when she was helping me plan to actually find print copies that I could use every year. So those are there. Another place for some of my materials, I don't know if you all have used the HHMI website, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. Sometimes with my AP biology kids, I can pull some biology links from there, and it has some really good background about bacteria that you can pull from article-based sources for their research.